Yeah, welcome to the Academy 99 podcast. Um, Chris, great to have you here. I say here, you're there.
You're there.
And
I'm here.
I say here like it's my podcast. It's ours.
Oh, you froze up.
You're no guest.
3 seconds into the show.
Yeah. Hey, you missed it. I know you've been sick like all week. How many days?
1,000.
And this is like
just since last weekend, but
yeah, but this is like this is a great day compared to.
I'm feeling almost human again, which is spectacular. I really appreciate being healthy, and you don't notice how much you take for granted being healthy when you're healthy. It's just like all of a sudden when you're sick, it's like, oh man, if only I could, be normal again.
It's accurate. Our mutual friend Todd explained this to me one time, and he's right. But this has applications for other stuff I won't dive into. But just like I talk about it in coaching with clients, is like when you're sick for more than 3 days, particularly if you have a fever, it's about the 3-day point. You forget. Your body totally forgets. And so your brain does what it feels like to be normal. So everything feels terrible. If you have to cancel an entire day of business, it feels like, man, this business is going to fail because I suck at what I'm doing. No, you're just sick.
Right. That is accurate. There was probably last Saturday where I had to do that. I had to cancel my calls, and I was like, everything's falling apart. I'm going to have to get kicked out of my house. I'm going to, lose everything I own. I'm going to be living on the street. I don't think I'll ever be better again.
That's sick. It actually ties into, that's just being sick. I mean, depression, it's just like, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I having these dreams? Oh yeah, my body is fighting off an infection. And so it's cranked up its temperature. Nothing is at base value right now.
Right.
Which ties into what we're talking about today. But I wanted to tell you, so you missed it while you were sick. I actually wore a flannel, a flannel button-up shirt. I didn't button it. I couldn't bring myself to like full flannel.
I
recorded a piece of content.
Some of the content you recorded with you wearing a flannel. I was like, holy smokes, he's got a new shirt.
It was cold, and it was the closest thing to me. And so, because I'm always terrible about like being on brand, I was just like, let me just put this on. I'll just wear this. And I haven't looked that colorful in years. I probably have worn black t-shirts, except for my father's funeral. For the last 7 years, nothing but black t-shirts.
Right.
Or black button-up shirts.
I'm kind of the same way. It's like my color palette is black and gray. And
you introduced me to it. You introduced me to it, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but being in the Northern Neck, and you would just go out and buy like a pack of gray shirts and either blue slacks or black slacks.
Yeah.
And that's all you wore. And I was like, is that an option? Can I have an option where I really just don't, I can just wear black?
Well, it started in college where I don't know. I kind of got to this point where I was like, I don't want to have to like waste time picking out today's outfit. If it's all the same, then I can just grab it and go.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I've had people ask me, is that so you don't fatigue your decision well? And I'm like, no, it's because I like black.
Right.
So we do the same thing, but for totally different reasons.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I guess there are some like big CEOs that do the same thing. They just have like the same suit that they wear.
Steve Jobs was famous for it. And
the turtleneck. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just said basically he doesn't have to make any decisions.
And
when it comes to clothes,
it wasn't the intent to like reserve that decision-making bucket. It was more just like, I just don't feel like taking the time. So if it's all the same, then
So the
there's more efficiency than
laziness
anything.
wins.
Yeah, maybe.
Um, so this question, which we put out one episode, and all right, so this is our second episode. Woohoo! Don't know if you saw the premiere, but I videotaped it for you and sent it. What is Academy 99? You know, what is it all about? And this is,
Yeah,
I think this conversation is today less about like, what are the features, and more
sure.
about what's the philosophy and why. Why is it called Academy 99? What are we all about with Academy 99?
Yeah.
Because you have your business, I have my business. This is something, its own separate entity. But tell me about what is it? What does Academy 99 mean?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm constantly trying to improve my life in all areas, and the drive behind that is I used to joke around that the phrase I would say is I want to be the epitome of human excellence. Um, and and as joking as that as I was when I would say that, I kind of mean it too. Like I want to be
Became real.
like humans are kind of interesting, and there's a lot of potential there, and I want to see how far that potential goes. And so the Academy 99, it's really like, all right, how do we pool our minds and get to a point where we can push each other to be in the 99th percentile of human existence, and not just physically, but like mentally and emotionally and financially. It's like, how far can we push that potential to get in that top 1% of existence, you know?
Yeah. It's that's an endeavor, man. I mean, you're not just talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Right.
That's a, there's a height to that description right there.
This is kind of what I've come to understand is you never arrive. You never get there. There's always something else you can improve, which when you take a step back and look at like that big picture, then it's like, oh shoot, this could be exhausting. And sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But also that's where all the fun is. The story I tell of my buddy Travis and I when we climbed Kilimanjaro, we were at base camp, and the way they set it up is like you bed down at like 6, and then you get up at midnight to start your ascent. So when you summit, you're at the summit around sunrise. Well, so Travis and I were sitting around sipping coffee, and across base camp, this guy was just like yelling, and he had both fists over his head. He was just stoked. He's like, "I did it! I climbed Kilimanjaro." And Travis and I kind of looked at each other because he and I were already discussing, all right, what's the next mountain we're going to climb, or what's the next adventure we're going to go on, and we hadn't even summited this one. And that lesson that I learned in that moment is kind of twofold. One, I think it's incredibly important to take a pause, look around, appreciate where you are in the journey. But two, for me, the journey, the struggle, the climb is the most fun part of this whole process. And so the minute that you get to the summit and then you think you can relax, that's when I don't know, in my opinion, you start dying. And so
Yeah.
I would much rather like, all right, find the next struggle I can engage in and try to pursue that. Um, and so that's kind of what this Academy 99 is. It's like continually striving for that upper echelon of human experience and human excellence.
Yeah. Tony Robbins says if you aren't growing, you're dying. And there's
Yeah.
truth in that.
Yeah.
And I'll probably say it every podcast episode. I don't agree 100% with anybody on the planet. And I don't agree
Right.
100% with what I
Right.
said last year. But I think he's right there. If you aren't growing, you're dying. And it's a mentality, it's a mindset around that. And you're talking,
Yeah.
I think the famous saying is fall in love with the process. and it's so accurate.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
1,000 different analogies for that. So I'll go one by one through all 1,000 of those analogies. So the first one is, um, it's accurate, but how I relate it, this was a really difficult lesson for me to learn, which is another thing I'll probably say 100 times if we only have 3 episodes. Is this was a difficult thing for me to learn. Phil Stutz, are you familiar with Phil Stutz?
No.
He's a psychologist or a psychiatrist. He might be a psychiatrist. He might prescribe. But he works with celebrities. He works with famous athletes. He works with, some of the ultimate elite performance individuals. And you would know him, Netflix has a special called Stutz, and he is Jonah, what's his name's shrink?
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill, yeah.
Yeah.
But this saying he and his partner have, his business partner, is there is no winner circle. That everyone he's worked with who got to the ultimate height of their industry, every one of them continued to say, like, well, I thought, where's the club? When does it get easy? Was what they were saying, basically. When does this get easy?
Right.
And he would just say, there is no winner circle. And these 3 main things. Every day, you're going to have to wake up and face the day. Every day, you're going to have to work, and it will never end. That if you want to be fulfilled in life, you're going to have to surrender to the fact that it's going to take work every day. And some people have a really hard time with that. By some people, I mean, I used to. And then, but there is such a freedom in just accepting that and surrendering to that. Okay, what I did yesterday doesn't count anymore. It counts. It happened. I can have that memory.
Right.
But that was the state championship. Now I got to move on to what am I doing today?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's spot on. I think was it Dan Gable? Dan Gable. It's Dan Gable. So Olympic wrestler. And he would go out and just smoke everybody and get like the gold medal. And then while everybody else is like, celebrating the next day, he's out running, the 5 miles that he needed to, because he just never stopped. He said,
my second high school coach, I had 2 high school wrestling coaches. The first one, I won't mention his name, but excellent athlete, wrestled full scholarship at Penn State, walked onto the football team and made it.
Wow.
But could not communicate what to do to somebody else. So a terrible coach. So he got fired after my sophomore year. My junior year, Mike Cassie came in, national championship, a couple of them, and a bunch of titles. He wrestled under Dan Gable. And he said they would do a practice where all practice they would do this drill where you start out on your back in a pinned position and just spend all practice fighting off of your back. Anyways, rabbit hole. But for all those listening who wrestled, real wrestling, not WWE. So yeah, I do. I love that. So there's that sense. And to get in the 99th percentile, I'll tell you how I take this really personally. I know I'm always conscious of my self-talk. So there'll be some people who listen who are total coach dorks who'll be like, oh, don't talk about yourself that way. Okay. When we take an IQ test, I know what my IQ is. I am not a genius or brilliant. Okay. I'm of average intelligence. I'm smart. Barely. You put me in a room with a bunch of high IQ people and like my mouth needs to stay shut for the most part. And I get into those rooms right? We talked about
Yeah.
like just having high quality people around you. Dude, I've
Yeah.
been in, it's like, listen to Jordan Peterson, and you're like, that guy's
Yeah.
brilliant, articulates everything
Right.
really well. Huberman, another guy, brilliant,
Yeah.
high IQ,
Yeah.
articulates everything really well. I'm not that guy, and I know when I'm around those people. Okay. So I'm not that smart. And I think I just was raised about as average as it could be. Loving home, a father with unconditional love, you know. So that gave me a leg up and some leverage in a lot of ways. But in other ways, dude, I tell people
Sure.
all the time, I probably overcome more insecurities and limiting beliefs than most people have ever had or ever will have. And so for
Yeah.
me, when I think of hitting that 99th percentile, it's less about how do I beat everybody else out to become in that 1%.
Right.
And it's more about how do I become the best possible version of myself. So what's available to me
Right.
and my potential, and how do I tap into that? That motivates
Yeah.
me like nothing else. That motivates me way more than beating somebody else out or being better than somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with competition,
Right.
in my opinion. I love it. And some people thrive off.
Agreed.
I
Yeah.
thrive off it if I'm playing my fiance in like rummy, or if my daughter's like, "You want to race?" I'm like, "I'm going to embarrass you." But
Yeah. I never let them win.
no, why would you let them win? My youngest, I play in chess weekly,
Yeah.
and one time I let it get to a stalemate so she could see what a stalemate looks like. But I just clobber her and feel great about it. She keeps coming back. So, and someday
Yeah.
she'll beat me, or I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But
Right.
for me, it's I really get hyped about how do I become that 99th percentile of what my potential is.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think however
And
people want to look at that.
and I agree. It's not really about comparing oneself to others, but rather it's yeah, like you said, the 99th percentile of self. But what I have found is as you go through the journey, as you go through the struggle to get a little bit better in whatever area of life, incidentally, that opens up new opportunities and more room for you to grow. And so you see more availability for you to get better at things, because you've now like broadened your horizons, and opened up, you know, your line of sight to the capabilities that you do have. Um, you know, obviously like a 10-year-old isn't going to have the same kind of, physical capability as like an Olympic lifter, but he can pursue the best that he could do at that time. But over time, that could potentially lead him to, Olympic level. So
Absolutely.
I think you're spot on.
No, 100%. And it's one of the pieces I do love about competition, because it just
Yeah.
makes you be better. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to use a bunch of sports analogies. So if I lose you, I'll come back.
I used to sports.
Yeah. Yeah. So, magic isn't magic without Bird. Brady isn't Brady without
Yeah.
Manning. And you can go across the
Yeah.
board, you know, Foreman and Ali. It's just
Mhm.
that competition does help us tap into the best possible versions of ourselves if we allow it to.
Yeah.
And that's not a commentary on participation trophies, by the way.
Right.
It's just not. But those are dumb. Yeah, I think competition's super healthy if you know how to, because if you do fall into the comparison game, it gets ugly pretty quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. And there's a
I
piece of
think
fulfillment in what we do where that actually matters. right? Like
Yeah.
if you're the
Yeah.
best and you're miserable, who cares? At the end of the day, like, all right, you're the best and
Right.
your life sucks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's part. I think that's part of the formula.
Yeah.
When striving towards that, upper echelon of human existence, it's not just success in various areas. It's also fulfillment amidst that success. Or when you experience failure, are you still able to feel fulfilled or um, content with self amidst kind of those setbacks and those failures?
So there's three pieces for me that I look at just to have a foundation or a launch pad to
Mhm.
to even be able to hit that 80 to 90 percentile. And so it's obviously these are prerequisites for hitting 99 is one would be physiological, two would
Yeah.
be psychological, and three would be relational. So
Yeah.
if you don't have a strong, and I'm not talking about disabilities or anything for any three of those things,
Mhm.
regardless of, it's just if you don't have yourself a solid base physically
Mhm.
and health wise,
Right.
if you don't have a
Yeah.
solid base psychological and
Mhm.
mindset, and if you don't have a solid base
Yeah.
relational, being able to adequately relate to other human beings, you can kiss that 99 percentile goodbye. What are your thoughts on that? You might have one to add, or it might fall into those. You might describe them differently.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think those three tenets are pretty foundational, and it's interesting that they're all connected too. Um, for example, when you're dealing with health issues, we kind of talked about this earlier. Is like when you're dealing with health issues, everything else just kind of like there's so much energy like in your body being spent trying to heal that like yeah, you're not thinking straight. You're probably forgetting to interact with the people that you care about because all of your internal energy is going towards trying to make the body right. So now extrapolate that out to like what if you just live an unhealthy lifestyle? Well, your body is now constantly trying to combat maybe the poisons that you're putting into it the or combat the I don't know, the maybe you're super overweight or whatever. It's like your body has to deal with that stress that you've put on it, and that is now taking away from the other areas of life you could be expending energy in. I I think there's a huge correlation between fit body, fit mind, and then that bleeds out into the relationships that you have in your life for sure.
100%. I have sleep apnea, and I fought it for
Mhm.
years. And by fought it, I mean was stupid about not getting tested and then just getting a CPAP machine or any device.
Yeah,
But I was just like, I don't
yeah,
want to try a bunch of different stuff. Give me the thing that is proven to work. And so
right.
and it's a mild form. It's I would wake up. My test showed I would wake up 21 times an hour, and that's considered mild
Mm,
sleep apnea.
that's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, never really hitting that deep sleep state. Rarely,
right,
if I was lucky, and I could tell the
right.
next day if I hit it or not
Yeah,
just by how I felt. But getting that CPAP
hmm,
machine and being able to, I call it my iron lung because like I feel so lazy when I put that on because I don't even have to breathe. It just does all of that for me, or at least it feels that way, right? But it's also a great cue to fall
yeah,
asleep. When
yeah,
I put that thing over my head, my eyes drop about 70%. I'm just like, oh, well, I guess this is
yeah.
good night. Um, but using that just on a regular basis for a week to 10 days uh, was
Yeah.
amazing. And now I can't remember what it was like. I mean, I remember, but I've lost that feeling of what it was like before. But it was
Yeah.
sort of like waking up every day cloudy and foggy and tired and drained
Right.
and just like I
Yeah.
shouldn't drive a car for more than 4 hours today. I know that. Right.
Right.
Um,
And what's interesting is like you start to get used to that. And so you think that's just normal.
you think that's
And
the
then,
norm. Yeah.
and so and you just try to like navigate with the brain fog and with like the constant fatigue. And now that you've got, something that's helping you, deal with it, now you're like, oh, now I can think clear and I can, exercise better and recover faster because I'm getting that quality sleep.
And just a lack of anxiety and stress and cortisol pumping through my veins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's
Right.
it. So, and that's for every piece, but for sure. And I know we've already lost people because I used to be one of those people. It's like, it's not sexy to talk about
Right.
eating well, moving well, and sleeping well and hydrating well. Those things are not sexy, but they all have the sharpest razor teeth for biting a chunk out of life that
Yeah.
it can't be ignored. And if you're like, God, show me something a little more enticing, no. Because if you can't do
Right.
right, if you aren't willing to commit to the foundation, same thing with psychology.
Yeah.
Like it's last year there was a big marketing push by a bunch of people to shit all over morning routines. And everyone's got their
Oh
own
yeah.
morning routine.
Yeah.
Even if their morning routine isn't to do a morning
Sure.
routine, that's fine. But it's a non-negotiable for me. As soon as I wake up, I am going to
Yeah.
have my mind willfully dictate how the day is going to be.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
don't do that, it's just like I am a paper boat, you know, on
Yeah.
category 5 rapids. It's just like you're going under,
Yeah.
and I've had those
Yeah.
days. But it is like that's psychology part as well.
Yeah.
The thing
No,
about
I
all
totally
of
agree.
these, um, physiology, psychology, or physical, relational, and psychological. The really cool thing is, for the most part, they're free. They cost
Right.
nothing financially.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like you're
So
not
imagine,
buying a supplement. You're not what you
right.
might take a
Imagine,
course.
sure. But like some of the things you just mentioned, it's like, imagine somebody could bottle all that stuff up into a pill. How much would you pay for it? Well, man, if it could improve my performance in all areas of life and overall improve the quality of my life, yeah, I would drop all kinds of cash on it. But you're right, it's free. Like getting up and moving around, getting solid sleep, hydrating well, interacting regularly with the people you love, and ensuring that you're filling your mind with the appropriate thoughts to move you forward. It's all like zero cost and actually pretty little effort too. Uh,
It's
and
pretty little
and if you
effort.
can dial all that in, it's like a superpower if you can dial it in.
Why do you think there is a large portion of the population that try to skip past this, try to hack their way past this?
Right. Um, I think some of it is because water doesn't taste good. Sleep feels like a waste of time. Particularly,
Hmm.
sleep's an interesting one because it's the time that like you can really superpower your life if you can get quality sleep. But also at the end of the day, after you've given yourself to career and work and house stuff, you want to like recapture some of the day for yourself. And so it's like, this is the only time I have to veg out and do nothing, watch Netflix or scroll on my phone. And so that becomes the thing where it's like, this just feels good because I can finally
So
claim the
guilty.
day. Right.
Thanks for
I mean,
throwing me under
same
the
here.
bus, bro.
Dude, I was talking about myself. but, um, but it's like, yes, but unfortunately you're trading that, like some of those like basic things like hydrating and sleep and just getting up and moving, if you trade those up for like I just want to spend some time not doing anything, then the long term effects are actually worse than you think. And so rather, what I typically tell folks is like, hey, if you need that downtime where you're not doing anything, like literally put it on your calendar. It's like, all
Schedule
right,
it.
this 90-minute
Yeah.
block, this 90-minute block is mine. Nothing else can interfere with it, and just make it part of the routine, part of your day. Um, some when people tell me, I just don't have time to work out, or I don't have time to read a book or whatever, I'm like, dude, 1 hour of your day is only 4% of the 24-hour block. So make it work. Like
I know it's
if you can't devote 4% of your day to being optimized, like, okay, I mean, that's on you
yeah.
then.
I'll speak. I will speak to that because it's an excuse I used to make.
Yeah.
It's an excuse. 100%. That's an excuse. You have as much time as
Yeah.
the leader of every nation. You have as much time as Elon
Yeah.
Musk. You have as much time as Richard Branson. You have as much time. Name the person who's doing more
Yeah.
than you could ever imagine, and you have the same amount of time in your day.
Yeah.
It's just an excuse. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have responded well to hearing myself say that 8 years ago.
Right. I mean, it's
So
like, I still, I
I
still
think
feel
you're
guilty
spot on there with all three of
when
those.
I
I
take
think
that time. Yeah.
they're just not. Everyone's always looking for a secret, which there aren't any. There's things that are being
Right.
discovered
Right.
daily, but those
Sure.
aren't secrets. I mean, there was a time where we didn't know about NAD and those effects,
Right.
but
Yeah.
they're not secrets. There is no secret, but I think people want that. Like, tell me the thing that's going to make it easy. And the reality
Right.
is the only thing that's going to make it easy, I think, is improving on the physical, the psychological, and the relational. That's what'll make it. That's what'll make everything easier.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's also this kind of aversion to the struggle, because I mean, struggle kind of sucks. But what, having said that, like, what is more satisfying, um, climbing to the top of a mountain, or getting, you know, I don't know, elevator lifted, or a giant escalator, and
Right.
it just plops you at the top? Like, so maybe that's a little cheesy, but I think there's some validity to it. It's like, yeah, learn to love the struggle. The struggle is like the most fun part, because that's where all the growth happens.
Yeah,
Top of the
that's
mountain's
hero's
cool. The
journey.
view is great, but it's like, yeah, the struggle is where you become the new person.
I mean, that's Joseph Campbell to the core. The story
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
prince who's born and raised and becomes king and dies is boring unless you're into The Crown, or a Netflix
Right.
show like that. The story of a space orphan that's a farmer who meets a Jedi
Right.
who's being who then has to overthrow an entire galactic empire. That's a story
Right.
worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Actually worth
Right.
that, right? So
Right.
I totally get that. Before we wrap up though, let's talk about the glitzy, the flashy. Once you have those things down, then there's this second layer of this is the standard of what needs to be done. And then there's the pinnacle of how are you, and it usually goes back into, in my experience, you're going back into that foundation. How do I get the most out of my physiology? How do I get the most out of my psychology? How do I get the most out of my relationships? And how do I perform at that elite performance level, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
the best way I know how to talk about it is in general, because there isn't time to go into what do you do. I mean, we can another time. What do you do with your clients when they come to you and they've already got those
Sure.
first two layers and they're seeking to hit the peak, the summit? Is focus, which doesn't, I mean, sounds boring too. I should come up with like something that sounds really exciting and marketable. But for me, it really is focus. Like, what are you going to focus on?
Yeah.
What are you going to sacrifice? And how far are you willing to go?
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. And I replaced the word sacrifice for investment. So
Yeah, I
my
like
favorite
that.
philosopher, Ayn Rand, she describes sacrifice as the trading of something of great value for something of lesser value. And when you're choosing to let go of the things that are maybe holding you back, that's not a sacrifice. That's an investment, because you're actually trading something of lesser value for something of greater value. And that's what investment is. And so kind of, yeah, to your point, it's like once you're maybe achieving at a certain level, it's like, all right, where else can we improve? What other things are you willing to, push yourself towards? With a lot of my clients, I have them keep track of, they have daily tasks and weekly tasks, and they keep track of it with like a percentage tracker. Like, all right, percentage executed on these certain things throughout the week. How did you do? Well, this one guy was hitting 100% on everything week to week to week. And that's when I was like, all right, man, you've dialed this in. It's time to push the envelope. Where can you stretch yourself? Where can
Right.
you push a little harder? Because if you're constantly hitting 100%, the tasks are maybe too easy or too manageable. From Brian Moran's book, 12-Week Year, there's a concept where it's like it's 85% or better. That 85% allows for life to happen and potentially disrupt the process, but it also allows for like you to be pushing yourself, and you don't have to be perfect at something in order to experience that growth and that progression.
Yeah, I totally am going to fall in love with the investment concept over sacrifice. Sacrifice just sounds dirty even in my mouth. It just hurts. And then, tracking KPIs, daily habits, that's all that second layer of this is what everyone has to do to achieve some success. And then honing those things in at the top.
Right.
Acting in ways other people don't act. And that's just
Right.
for you,
Yeah.
And again, I think it's Nick Peterson always says that there's no sense in running a race you don't want to win. Like,
right.
You can make the investment in another area of your life because you're never going to be like the winner in everything.
Right. Exactly.
You just won't. But
another
the things
trend
that matter to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And another trend that I found was maybe you're just brand new to the journey and you're just starting out. Then those small changes like hydrate, sleep, connect with people you love, that's going to feel like it has a huge impact on overall well-being. And it probably will if you've never done it. But as you progress forward, you're going to be looking out for the things that are just going to improve a little bit more. And as you get closer to the top, so to speak, it's the improvements are going to be smaller and smaller. It's like an Olympic athlete trying to shave hundredths of a second off of their run time or their swim time. Once you're at that level, you're not looking for the huge gains. You're looking for that just a little bit more that's going to give you a little bit more of an edge in life.
And big picture, to your initial story about the guy at the base camp of Mount Kilimanjaro, when you lose the drive to shave that hundredth or thousandth of a second off, it might be an indicator. It might not be, but at the very least, a flag should go up where you check in with yourself and say, is there a different mountain that it's a new season for me to climb? Right? Because when you're 55, you're not going to be
exactly
in the 99th percentile for sprinting. Maybe for 55-year-olds and up. Right. And so if you still love it, keep going, keep competing. But to that conversation around fulfillment, then it might be time to look up and be like, all right, where's the next peak? You know, what do I want to do now?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Nailed it, dude.
So that's
spot on.
That's a little bit of Academy 99. We are launching a weekly coaching session for next to nothing, where you and I get on with people and coach them through, for sure, that first layer, right? That foundational layer.
Yeah. Yep.
And into that second layer where, I mean, that in and of itself is life-changing. To your point, you know, you get these massive gains right away.
Right.
For like less than 2 coffees, or if you're a Starbucks food drinker, less than a coffee a month, for multiple calls a month to jump on that.
Yeah.
So if any of this, you know, has struck a chord with, look right into the camera, struck a chord with you, then reach out to us. That'll be going live ridiculously soon. And and we'll start doing those calls and walking through some of the basics. It's not one-on-one. It's not, you know, what I do separately or you do separately. This is you and I together on calls with people, walking them through that anybody can afford, and will be a game changer.
So, and that was the intent, to make it so it's available for as many people as need it.
Many people as possible. And you'll get out of it what you put into it. But you and I will be there, and we'll be our 99th percentile selves on those calls.
Yeah, that's the intent.
Yeah. unless you're sick. Unless I'm sick or you're sick.
Well, there's that.
Cool, man. Well, let's do this again next week.
Awesome, dude.
All right, brother. I'll chat with you later.
Down. Same time.
All right.
Same time next time. All right, buddy.
Same time
next time.
All right, see you, buddy.